Good afternoon. I'm Mayor Lyrian Gaylor-Baird. I'm going to call this meeting of the West Haymarket JPA for January 28th, 2021 to order. To my left is Councilwoman Tammy Ward, and to my right is Regent Tim Clare. This is a public meeting subject to the state's Open Meetings Act, a copy of which is posted in the back of our chambers. And as we proceed down the agenda, the clerk will read each item on the agenda, and staff who are present will then come forward. We will take public comment on our agenda items, and if each speaker could please state their name and address for the record, and note that testimony is limited to 5 minutes per speaker, we would be grateful. And with that, Casey, would you please call the first item?
Approval of the minutes from the JPA meeting held November 19th, 2020.
Move approval.
Second.
Approval moved by Claire, seconded by Ward. Any discussion of the minutes or corrections? Please call the roll.
Claire,
Yes.
Gaylor-Baird,
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Motion carried 3-0. Next item is approval of November and December 2020 payment registers and review of the November and December 2020 expenditure reports.
So moved.
Oh, I think is there staff present?
We do have
That'd be Dave.
Yeah, if you want to come on up, David. And
Members of the JPA, my name is David Young. I am the Interim Finance Director for the city and as such, the Treasurer for the JPA. Thank you for the opportunity to present today. We're going to go over the November and December of 2020 payment registers that have been provided in your packet. Looking specifically at the November register, there's a couple of items to call to your attention. $111,995.41 was paid to the parking deck management team for management services. The third quarter sponsor increment of $287,171.50 was paid to the JPA for the sponsorship increment, $150,000 for the operating increment. The volleyball floors, which were approved in a previous JPA meeting, 2 volleyball floors were purchased for $79,097, and the District Energy Corporation payment was made of $209,064. As a reminder, 31% of that amount is paid by the JPA and 69% is billed to customers in the district. Those are the highlights from the November register. Are there questions on the November register?
questions? No, I don't think there are.
Okay, I'll move on to the December register. Thank you. In December, we made our first quarter city staff reimbursement of $100,901. We made our first large bond payment, which includes principal and interest of $12,726,911.08. Again, $102,892.35 for parking deck management. Previously approved by the board, $301,012.35 for a 5-year environmental insurance policy. Arena maintenance of $20,782.99. Our sponsorship increment, again, the same as in the third quarter, $287,171.56. Operating increment, $150,000. DEC, $210,387. Maintenance for November, which was paid in December, of $16,310. And then our parking deck management of $85,419.14.
Thank you, David. Are there any other questions on the register?
Is that the $300,000 for the insurance? Is that for that environmental insurance that we talked about? Okay.
Correct.
All right. Thank you. At this time, we would take any public comment on these items.
Jane Kinsey, I can't hear a word if you don't use the mic. This thing have to sit way back there. Please talk louder if you're going to have a public. Okay? So are people paying their share of the thermal heating and cooling?
Yes, they are.
Okay. Did the arena get its $2 million that it applied for with the CARES Act?
My understanding is that it did, but it's not included in this report because it was not booked in November or December.
What?
I believe yes, but it was not booked in November or December, so you'll show up on the January report.
Okay, in the next report.
Yes.
What effort has been made to cut their expenses?
I'll have to follow up with you on an answer for that.
Yes, please.
I will.
Do you have other questions, Ms. Kinsey? Do you have other questions, Ms. Kinsey?
What?
Do you have other questions?
Yes, I asked him if what effort has been made for them to cut their expenses.
I will have to follow up with you on that.
Okay, how do I do that?
I will respond to the board, and we'll post either contact you directly or provide the information to the board.
Okay, I can email you.
Yes, email.
What's your name?
I'll put it on the, if you don't mind, I'll provide you the contact card and everything.
What?
I'll provide you with a card.
Okay. What other things are of note in here that are different? Anything? You're still paying a high amount of management. What's project control of Texas? Number 598-263.
My understanding is Project Control does all of our outside plant management of the JPA. So the management of the Haymarket rail yard repairs, things like that.
What?
I'm going to scoop this up. Project Control provides the construction management and maintenance work for the entire district.
For what?
The district, for the JPA district, the whole area.
Okay, that's not the same thing as they've had before. Is that like a management? Okay.
That is correct.
So where do you anticipate the arena will be if you get this CARES assistance? Will it just go down into basic earnings, or are you going to divvy it out, or?
1 minute.
In next month's presentation, we'll address how those earnings are booked for you and provide you that information.
Okay, you haven't made a decision, or you don't want to say?
I'm not exactly sure that we have actually received it. I think we have awarded it. I'm just wanting to make sure where we're going to book it.
Okay. Okay, I guess that's it.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak to these items? Okay, seeing none, I'd entertain a motion on the payment registers.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Claire, seconded by Ward. Are there any further questions or any discussion? All right, please call the roll.
Claire?
Yes.
Gaylor Baird?
Yes.
Ward?
Yes.
Motion carried, 3-0. Next item is WH 21-1, resolution to authorize the chair of the West Haymarket JPA or purchasing agent to execute an agreement with Quadient Leasing USA for the rental of a postage meter for a term of 5 years for the use at the Pinnacle Bank Arena.
Good afternoon. Chris Connolly, Chief Assistant City Attorney. Pinnacle Bank Arena is in need of a postage meter. They've been using one since they've opened. So this is essentially a renewal of an agreement that they've had for quite a while. The name of the company has now changed. It's now called Quadient Leasing, but it's a 5-year lease for a total over the 5 years of $4,500. So it'll be less than about $900 a year, about $75 a month for the postage meter. Anyway, it's something that they need for sending out flyers and correspondence to suite holders and that sort of thing. So it gets used.
Any questions? We had a fun little joke about how close they are to a post office.
Yes,
but,
yes, we did, right next door.
I can imagine they do have a lot of mail to send. All right. Are there any folks who would like to testify on this item?
How much is it?
Total is $4,500 over 5 years.
Are they doing anything that they need to have postal
Yes,
expenses?
yes,
What is it, 4,000 what?
$4,500.
What are they doing now that they need to have that?
Well, as I just advised the board, they send out flyers to people. They send out correspondence to suite holders and to others that they communicate with on a regular basis, promoters. So there's all kinds of things that they use it for.
Is this a renewal or?
It's a renewal.
Renewal? And is it the same machine, same expense that they've had in the past?
It's the same expense or similar expense, and whether it's exactly the same machine, I don't know.
Okay. Same company?
Same company, although the company name has changed.
Okay. Is this anticipating business or just keeping in touch or what?
It's a little bit of both. It's an expense they've had for years, and sure, we're anticipating that we'll be able to open up later this year.
And it's not something you can do away with?
Not at the
save
moment.
money?
Excuse me?
To save money?
They believe they still need to use it. And if they, if communications start getting more serious again with suite holders and loge box holders, which is an important part of this, and as well as promoters for concerts, they're going to want something like this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Connolly. Would anyone else like to testify on this item? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion from the board.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ward, second by Claire. Any further discussion? Great, seeing none, please call the roll.
Claire,
Yes.
Gaylor Baird,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
motion carried 3-0. Next item is WH 21-2, resolution to accept the financial audit and management letter and report from BKD CPAs and advisors for the period ending August 31st, 2020.
Good afternoon, board members. I'm Chris Linner, an audit partner with BKD here in Lincoln, Nebraska, and just want to present the results of the fiscal 20 audit for the JPA. First, I just want to offer my thanks for the finance team here at the city for all the work they do in helping us get through that audit, having the documents ready for us. I know before he left, this was kind of Brandon's last audit out the door before he left for Kansas on us, but then the rest of the finance team as well. Mark Lycum, the JPA accountant, does a great job. Melinda Jones, Jane Tillman, David Schuler are all key parts of the finance team that help us. So, want to give them appreciation for all the work that they do to help us complete the audit here in a timely manner. just the two documents that you would have received, I believe electronically in your packet, I have printed off here. I'll cover them both very briefly and then just see if there's any questions you may have. The first is the financial statements and the audit report itself, including various items we'll touch on. And then the second is a shorter letter with our logo at the top, is the communication letter, maybe also known as the management letter, kind of touching on certain required communications from the auditor to governance to the board from that standpoint. So doing that verbally and also in writing, just so that you've got that in front of you. We'll touch on a few things in there as well. But again, like I mentioned, I want to touch on things on a high level. If there are questions, I'd love to answer those while we're here today. Getting through the financial statements first themselves, you'll notice there are two opinions in there. So as part of the work we do, the first opinion is the one near the front. That's the opinion on the financial statements. And so that's us, the testing we do say, are those financial statements accurate? Are they materially correct in accordance with what GAAP would require for a governmental entity? And so that first opinion is a clean or an unmodified opinion there. And then the second opinion is the one in the back that references government auditing standards. So being the nature of the entity, the nature of the JPA, the report also is done in accordance, or the audit is done in accordance with government auditing standards. Now what that means, as part of our audit, we look at internal controls, and we look at what those controls and how they affect the financial statements. And as part of that, if we identified any control weaknesses or gaps that we would need to report, in that second opinion in the back is a finding. Sometimes if you hear it referred to as a material weakness or a significant deficiency, we would do that in that second opinion. That opinion, not having any of those items, can kind of be considered a clean opinion as well, as there is no reference to those items. We did not identify anything from a control standpoint that we felt was a finding that needed to be reported to the board. In the financial statement packet, really, again, there's lots of pages with statements and footnotes and other detail. Really, if you don't have time to get through all of it, the management's discussion and analysis on pages 3 to 7 is a more condensed format of everything. So it looks at the financial statements for the year end 20, and also kind of compares it to 19. The full financial statements themselves are just a single year. So you just see the information as of year end, and for that year, you don't get to see the prior year. Where that MD&A helps kind of show it year by year. You can see some of the changes, some of the increases, decreases, and then a little bit of narrative of maybe why things went up or down. So, it's the shorter section. It's a little more of the layman's read of the financial statements. So if you get a chance and can't get through the whole document, I'd really encourage you to get through that management's discussion and analysis section. The only other thing to touch on from the statements themselves to note on pages 8 and 9. So page 8 and page 9 are the balance sheet and income statement. They've got a little more long, drawn out, fancy governmental terms for those, but really looking at them saying the balance sheet, what are our assets and liabilities at year end? And then the income statement, what were the changes in those assets and liabilities, our revenues and expenses. There's 3 columns on there. That first column is what you look at as the JPA fund. And then the far one kind of is things more on that consolidated level. And so that fund reports like the general fund of the city. And so it's really more done kind of on a budgetary basis. It's looking at kind of the short-term inflows and outflows. It doesn't consider your long-term debt and your capital assets, the structure itself, and some of the other development. Those things that really aren't on a year-to-year budget basis, but you need to consider in the entity. And that's what that far right column does. So you have the first column and that far column, and then that column in between is kind of the reconciling items to say, well, what gets us from one to the other. There is a footnote that kind of details exactly what those reconciling items are. So you can kind of see, all right, if I'm getting from one to the other, what is that? What do those differences represent? So you can understand that as well. I just want to note that. I know maybe if you first open that statement, it may be a little confusing trying to understand, what the columns are really representing. And then following the statements is the footnotes. So kind of a detail of everything within the financials. If you have questions about a line item specifically, those footnotes can kind of help explain what the items are, how they're accounted for, and why they're there. Just moving on to the letter then very briefly, like I mentioned, under the audit standards, there are certain items that have to be required from the auditor to the board to governance. So whether that is done verbally, whether that's done in writing, we like to do it in both means of communications if we can. And so within that, you'll kind of touch on the scope of the audit, what are some of the more significant and sensitive items within the financials. A few things to note here on page 2 in the audit adjustment section. If we came in as part of our audit process proposed changes and found errors in the financials that needed changed and adjusted. We'd have to have those listed here. I'm happy to report at the end of that paragraph, you'll note there were no audit adjustments as part of our audit engagement. So again, kudos to the finance team here at the city for, again, having things in order and ready for us for that audit. The other thing in the letter, similar to that opinion that I mentioned, if we had other control items that we felt needed to be reported, even if it didn't meet, rise to the level within the opinion we wanted in the letter, we'd have to put it here. If we don't have any of those items, I can't put something in here saying we didn't identify any, but I can tell you verbally, not having that control section in this letter is a good thing, and meaning we did not identify anything from a control standpoint that we felt needed to be reported. So with that, I'll kind of turn it over if there are questions from the board for me, and happy to answer those.
So in summary, good, clean audit. Obviously, COVID has had an impact financially, but we're still on solid footing. I should have asked David that same question when he was up here, but I didn't. But from your standpoint, from an audit perspective, everything looks in order, and we got a clean bill of health.
Yeah, from the audit standpoint, again, we're looking at, and I need to be careful of how I answer that to say, yep, I feel from a financial, there's nothing from a concern standpoint. I guess we look at things and say, if we have an entity that we don't feel would be a going concern within the next year, we'd have some consultation and maybe some disclosure. We don't have anything like that in this report because of the nature of the organization and some of the financial activities and some of the positive results that were realized during the year, even with some of the issues going on. So from a control standpoint, nothing that we felt needed to be reported. And then from the audit standpoint, we didn't have any issues that we felt needed to be disclosed separately as well.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you so much.
Would anyone else like to speak on this item? Is there anyone from the public? Is there anyone who'd like to speak on this item?
Jane Kinsey with Watchdogs. Now this man is talking the way I can hear everything, so it's possible to do it. They seem to be on sync. The only issue we have is nothing with you, but we feel that you need a different auditing company than having one for 6 years at a time, and that company's been doing it for years and years after that. So a different pair of eyes looking at it is important for the, what do I want to say, for the benefit of the taxpayers. Nothing personal about your ability or anything, but this has come up before. And they don't seem to want to listen to it, but I'm going to say it again. So thank you for your work.
Would anyone else like to testify on this item? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion on the resolution to accept the financial audit and management letter and report.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Claire, second by Ward. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Claire,
Yes.
Gaylor Baird,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
motion carried 3-0. The next meeting date will be held Thursday, February 25th, 2021 at 2:30 p.m. here in council chambers.
And with that, I would accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ward, seconded by Claire. Please call the roll.
Claire,
Yes.
Gaylor Baird,
Yes,
Ward,
Yes.
we are adjourned.